I finally snapped at my family after years of being their personal ATM and emotional punching bag. At a family reunion, they joked about how they've always relied on me for money and support, but never truly valued me. I cut them off completely, closed joint accounts, canceled credit cards, and stopped responding to their calls. They showed up at my door begging for help, but I told them they'd have to figure it out themselves. The house was loud, too loud. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversation filled the air, but it all felt like noise to me. I sat in the corner of the living room, nursing a drink I didn't even want, watching my family orbit around each other like nothing was wrong. Like they hadn't spent years taking from me without ever giving back. Maya was holding court, as usual, her voice sharp and carrying over the room. "Oh, please," she said, rolling her eyes. "Alex's promotion? That was pure luck. Anyone could have gotten it if they were as boring and predictable as they are." The room erupted in laughter. My chest tightened, but I stayed quiet. I was used to this, used to being the punchline. Then Dad chimed in, his voice dripping with that casual cruelty he always reserved for me. "Well, at least we can always count on Alex to bail us out when things go south. Right, kiddo?" Something inside me snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Is that all I am to you? A walking ATM?" The room went silent. Maya smirked, Ethan looked away, and Mom sighed like I was being dramatic. Again. "Oh, come on, Alex," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "Don't be so sensitive. You've always been the responsible one. It's not our fault you can't take a joke." "A joke?" My voice shook with anger. "Do you even hear yourselves? I've spent years cleaning up your messes, paying your bills, covering your mistakes, and what do I get in return? Mockery? Disrespect?" Dad's face turned red. "You're being ungrateful. We're your family. You're supposed to help us." Ungrateful? I laughed, but it came out bitter and hollow. "You don't even know what that word means. I've given you everything, and you've never once thanked me, never once valued me." Maya rolled her eyes again. "Here we go. St. Alex, always the martyr. If you hate us so much, why do you keep helping us?" "Because I thought you'd change," I shouted, my voice breaking. "I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd see me as more than your backup plan. But you never will you? I'm just your safety net, your punching bag." Mom stood up, her face twisted in anger. "You're being selfish. Family sticks together, no matter what." "Selfish?" I spat the word back at her. "I've spent my entire life putting you first. And what have you done for me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing." Ethan finally spoke, his voice cold. "If you're so unhappy, then leave. See how far you get without us." The room fell silent again, the weight of his words hanging in the air. I looked at each of them. Maya's smug smirk, Ethan's cold indifference, Mom's frustration, Dad's anger, and realized they'd never change. They'd never see me as anything more than what I could do for them. "You're right," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm leaving. And don't bother calling me when you need help again. I'm done." I turned and walked out, their voices rising behind me. "Alex, don't be ridiculous," Mom shouted. "You'll come crawling back," Dad called after me. "Good luck surviving without us," Maya sneered. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My hands were shaking as I got into my car, but for the first time in years, I felt something other than resentment. I felt free. As I drove away, the sound of their voices faded, replaced by the hum of the engine and the pounding of my heart. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being their safety net. Done being invisible. Done. The road stretched out ahead of me, dark and endless, as I drove away from the house. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The adrenaline from the fight was fading, replaced by a heavy, suffocating weight in my chest. Memories I tried to bury came rushing back, each one sharper than the last. It wasn't just one moment that defined it all. It was 1,000 little ones. Like the time I was 16, working my first part-time job at a grocery store. I'd saved up for months to buy myself a new laptop for school. But then Dad came home one night, his face pale, his voice shaky. "Alex, I need to ask you something," he'd said, avoiding my eyes. "We're behind on the mortgage. If we don't pay by next week, we'll lose the house." I handed over every dollar I'd saved. "It's fine, Dad," I'd said, forcing a smile. "I'll manage." But I didn't. I spent the rest of the year borrowing classmates' laptops, pretending it didn't bother me. Then there was Maya. She was always the star, the one who could do no wrong. When she decided to drop out of college to find herself, Mom and Dad didn't bat an eye. "She's following her passion," Mom had said, as if passion paid the bills. But when Maya's passion led her to max out her credit cards on a trip to Bali, who did she call? Me. Alex, I'm in trouble, she'd said, her voice trembling with fake tears. If Mom and Dad find out, they'll kill me. Please, you have to help me. And I did. I always did. Ethan was no better. His entrepreneurial spirit was just an excuse to avoid responsibility. He'd come to me with his latest brilliant idea, a food truck that served gourmet grilled cheese. Alex, I just need a little startup capital, he'd said, as if I were some kind of venture capitalist. This is going to be huge. Trust me. I gave him the money. The food truck lasted 3 months before it went under. I pulled over to the side of the road, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The memories were too much, too vivid. I could still hear their voices, their demands, their excuses. Alex, you're the only one who can fix this. Alex, we're family. You can't say no. Alex, it's your responsibility. My responsibility. That's all I'd ever been to them. The responsible one. The reliable one. The one who never got to have dreams of their own because I was too busy carrying theirs. I thought about all the times I put them first. The promotions I turned down because they needed me. The relationships I let fall apart because I was too busy putting out their fires. The life I put on hold because they couldn't get theirs together. And for what? So they could laugh at me? So they could mock me and call me names and treat me like I was nothing more than a bank account? I slammed my hands against the steering wheel, the sound echoing in the empty car. Why? I shouted, my voice breaking. Why did I let them do this to me? But I already knew the answer. Because I loved them. Because I thought someday they'd see me, really see me, not as the person who fixed their problems, but as their sibling, their child, their equal. But they never did. I leaned back in my seat, staring up at the ceiling of the car. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was mixed with something else now. Something deeper. Sadness. Regret. I thought about the family reunions, the holidays, the birthdays. All the times I'd sat quietly in the corner, watching them laugh and joke and celebrate while I faded into the background. All the times I'd told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need their approval, their love, their respect. But it did matter. It always had. I started the car again, my hands steady now. The memories were still there, but they didn't hurt as much. Not anymore. I'd spent my whole life carrying their weight, but I didn't have to anymore. I didn't want to. As I pulled back onto the road, I made myself a promise. No more. No more sacrifices. No more excuses. No more letting them take from me without giving anything in return. It was time to put myself first. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Home didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a prison, a place where I was always expected to give and never allowed to take. Instead, I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The room was small and smelled faintly of mildew, but it was quiet. For the first time in years, I was alone with my thoughts. And my anger. It burned inside me, hot and relentless. I replayed the fight over and over in my mind, their words cutting deeper each time. Ungrateful. Selfish. You'll come crawling back. No, I wouldn't. Not this time. I pulled out my phone and stared at it for a long moment. Dozens of missed calls and texts from them lit up the screen. I didn't bother reading them. Instead, I opened my banking app and started cutting ties. Joint accounts? Closed. Credit cards they had accessed? Canceled. Automatic transfers to their accounts? Stopped. It felt like cutting off a limb, but it also felt freeing, like I was finally taking control of my life. The next morning, my phone buzzed incessantly. Maya's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Alex, what the hell is going on? She demanded, her voice shrill. I tried to pay my rent, and my card was declined. Did you do something? I took a deep breath, my voice calm but firm. Figure it out yourself, Maya. There was a stunned silence on the other end. What did you just say to me? You heard me. I said, I'm done cleaning up your messes. You're an adult. Act like one. You can't do this, she shrieked. Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? To all of us. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said coldly. And I don't care. I hung up before she could respond. The calls didn't stop. Ethan called next, his voice tight with anger. Alex, what's this about you closing the joint account? I needed that money for my business. Your business is your problem, I said. Not mine. You're being ridiculous, he snapped. We're family. You can't just cut us off like this. Watch me, I said, and ended the call. Then came Mom and Dad. They called together, their voices a mix of anger and desperation. Alex, this has gone far enough, Dad said. You need to fix this. Now. Fix what? I asked, my voice icy. The fact that you've been using me for years? or the fact that I'm finally standing up for myself. We've never used you, Mom said, her voice trembling. We're your parents. We've always loved you. Love. I laughed, but it came out bitter and hollow. You don't know the first thing about love. Love doesn't take. Love doesn't demand. Love doesn't make someone feel like they're worthless unless they're useful. Alex, please, Dad said, his voice breaking. We need you. No, I said, my voice steady. You needed me. Past tense. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done. I hung up and turned off my phone. The silence was deafening, but it was also peaceful. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control, like I was finally putting myself first. But the anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. They thought they could break me. They thought I'd come crawling back, begging for their approval, their love, their respect. They were wrong. I grabbed my laptop and started making plans. New bank accounts, a new phone number, a new apartment in a city far away from them. This wasn't just about cutting them off. This was about starting over, about building a life where I wasn't defined by their needs, their expectations, their failures. It was time to take back my life. And I wasn't looking back. Weeks turned into months, and the silence from my family was almost comforting. Almost. I'd changed my number, moved to a new apartment, and started building a life that was entirely my own. For the first time, I felt free. But freedom came with its own kind of weight, a lingering guilt that I couldn't quite shake. Then, one evening, as I was unpacking the last box in my new place, there was a knock at the door. I froze, my heart pounding. No one knew where I lived. No one except. I opened the door, and there they were. All of them. Mom, Dad, Maya, and Ethan. They looked different. Smaller, somehow. Less sure of themselves. Alex, Mom said, her voice trembling. We need to talk. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. You have 5 minutes. They exchanged uneasy glances before Dad stepped forward. We've made a mess of things, he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. We didn't realize how much you did for us. How much we relied on you. Relied on me? I repeated, my voice sharp. You didn't rely on me. You used me. There's a difference. Maya stepped forward, her usual confidence replaced by something I didn't recognize. Fear, maybe. Alex, I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't mean the things I said. I was jealous of you. You've always been so strong, so capable. I didn't know how to handle that. Jealous. I laughed, but came out bitter. You spent years mocking me, belittling me, and now you're jealous? That's rich. We were wrong, Ethan said, his voice quiet. All of us. We took you for granted, and we're paying for it now. My business is gone. Maya's in debt. Mom and Dad, they're struggling. We need your help. I stared at them, my chest tightening. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? For them to see me, to acknowledge everything I'd done for them. But now that it was happening, it didn't feel the way I thought it would. You need my help? I said slowly. But what about what I need? What about what I've always needed? Mom reached out, her hand trembling. We love you, Alex. We always have. We didn't know how to show it. Love, I repeated, my voice rising. Love doesn't make someone feel invisible. Love doesn't make someone feel like they're only worth what they can give. Love doesn't make someone feel like they're nothing more than a safety net. We're sorry, Dad said, his voice breaking. We're so sorry. Please, Alex. We need you. I looked at them, really looked at them. For the first time, I saw the cracks in their armor, the fear in their eyes, the desperation in their voices. And for a moment, I hesitated. But then I remembered. I remembered the years of being taken for granted, the years of being mocked and belittled, the years of being treated like I didn't matter. You had your chance, I said, my voice steady. You had years to show me that I mattered to you, and you didn't. Now you'll have to learn to live without me. Mom started to cry, her shoulders shaking. Alex, please. We're your family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me, I said, my voice cold. Now get out. They stood there for a moment, staring at me like they didn't recognize me. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the person they thought I was, the person they thought they could always count on, was gone. Finally, they turned and walked away, their footsteps echoing down the hallway. I closed the door and leaned against it, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The guilt was still there, but so was something else, something stronger. Resolve. I stood by the window of my new apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The silence was deafening, but it was a silence I'd chosen, a silence I'd fought for. My phone buzzed on the table behind me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I knew who it was. They'd been calling for weeks. Mom, Dad, Maya, Ethan. Sometimes separately, sometimes together. Their messages were always the same. Alex, please. We need you. We're sorry. We didn't mean it. You're tearing this family apart. But they were wrong. They'd torn the family apart long before I walked away. I was just the one who finally stopped pretending it could be fixed. I picked up the phone and scrolled through the messages, my chest tightening with each one. There was a part of me that wanted to respond, a part of me that wanted to believe they'd changed. But I knew better. The last message was from Maya. Alex, I'm begging you. Please, I can't do this without you. I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing my response. You'll have to. Then I blocked her number. It wasn't easy. None of this was easy, but it was necessary. I'd spent my entire life putting them first, and where had it gotten me? Broken, exhausted, invisible. I wasn't that person anymore. I packed the last of my things into a box and taped it shut. My new life was waiting for me, a life where I wasn't defined by their needs, their expectations, their failures. A life where I could finally breathe. As I carried the box to the door, there was a knock. I froze, my heart pounding. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there they were again. Mom, Dad, Maya, and Ethan. They looked worse than the last time I'd seen them. Tired, worn, desperate. Alex, Mom said, her voice trembling. Please, we need to talk. I stepped back, crossing my arms. We've already talked. There's nothing left to say. You're destroying this family, Dad said, his voice breaking. Is that what you want? To tear us apart? You did that, I said, my voice cold. Not me. I just stopped letting you tear me apart too. Maya stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Alex, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean the things I said. I didn't mean any of it. Please just come home. Home, I repeated, my voice rising. Where's home, Maya? Because it sure as hell wasn't with you. It wasn't with any of you. We're your family, Ethan said, his voice quiet. You can't just walk away from us. Watch me, I said, my voice steady. Mom reached out, her hand trembling. Alex, please. We love you. Love, I repeated, my voice sharp. You don't know the first thing about love. Love doesn't take. Love doesn't demand. Love doesn't make someone feel like they're worthless unless they're useful. They stood there, staring at me like they didn't recognize me. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the person they thought I was, the person they thought they could always count on, was gone. You had your chance, I said, my voice cold. Now, get out. They didn't move. I said, get out. I shouted, my voice echoing in the hallway. Finally, they turned and walked away, their footsteps fading into the distance. I closed the door and leaned against it, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The guilt was still there, but so was something else, something stronger. Freedom. I picked up the box and carried it to my car. As I drove away, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Some chains are meant to be broken.